Welcome to Scale Model Workshop. In this video, I'll be explaining several methods I use to close the gear doors on the Tamiya P-38E and J kit. From the start, I've always built my 48 scale aircraft as in flight. It's just my aesthetic choice, and it makes the models easier to display. The Tamiya P-38 series is very well designed to be displayed with the gear down and the cockpit open. So well designed that closing either the gear doors or cockpit takes some extra care. I go into the issues with the closed cockpit in my P-38J build review and my upcoming F4 conversion of the F&G kit. Both are on my Patreon channel. I use the same basic method to close the nose gear door for both the E kit and the J kit. In the E kit, the nose gear door was pretty close and only needed a bit of trimming up and additional material. To ensure a consistent line around the door, I foiled the opening and ran a thin mix of cyanoacrylate and dental resin powder around the edges. The door was popped out and the excess filler was finished down. The J kit was another story. I seemed to have very little luck getting the door to fit closely at all. I finally resorted to removing more material around the edges than I had with the E kit. I foiled around the opening again and used masking tape on the underside to actually position the door. A little stiffer mix of cyanoacrylate and acrylic powder was needed to make up the difference in the wider gap around the door. It also works better if you build the thickness in layers so it doesn't get too thick. Because of the additional material, it was better to do most of the finishing while the door was still fixed in place. While it seems counterintuitive, the curved sanding block allows for more precise sanding while trying to avoid destroying the surrounded molded detail. I found the main gear doors also fit better on the E kit, and I installed them after building up the booms. The main gear doors are thin and flexible, so the inner detail was cemented to place, making sure that the upper edges were flush. To help position the doors, I added a series of tabs that were cemented around the opening. With the extra support, the doors actually fit pretty well right out of the box. As with the nose gear door, the main gear doors on the J kit also seem to give more problems than in the earlier kit. So I used a completely different approach that I think proved to be an easier solution, and in hindsight, I would recommend this method for both kits. Here the main gear doors are cemented into each boom half right from the start. The first step is to align the doors best as possible and tack the front edge solidly in place with a little cyanoacrylate and resin mix. Because the doors are so thin, you need to pay special attention to how the doors line up longitudinally. As you can see, the rest of the door winds up pretty close. The flexibility of the door makes it easy to pull the rest of it into alignment, and the door is fixed in place with more cyanoacrylate and resin mix. The tricky bit about this method is tweaking how everything meets up when the boom halves are finally brought together. To make sure everything will be stable, it's a good idea to at least assemble and install the basic internal structure. It may be necessary to cut some of it back if it bumps into the cyanoacrylate and resin filler. Take your time marking and doing a selective removal of material. If you overdo it, you can easily make up the difference with the same foil and filler technique used for the nose gear door. Here I've placed a piece of 15,000 styrene to maintain the space and prevent the filler material from running into the wrong place. You can also use styrene strip. As you can see, the main objective is the same as with any removable panel that's cemented in place. You want to have the parts made up with a consistent surrounding line. It's much more controllable to establish the panel joint when the panel fits properly. Trying to scribe in lines later, through or between dissimilar filling materials, usually ends up in an unsatisfactory result. I hope some of my experiences will be helpful should you want to assemble this kit with the landing gear in the retracted position. So long for now, and I'll see you next time.